If you want to progress, you have to be ready and willing to change. In this episode, I'll take a closer look at the paradox of change and how to be better at it. So here we go, episode 120, Change. Hi, I'm Karen Rohlf, and welcome to Horse Training in Harmony. This podcast is about you making progress with your horse in a way that you both can love. It's about learning how to move and be in harmony. Because yes, you really can develop a horse to be both athletic and happy. When we show up as our best selves for our horses will show up for us. So, let's get started. In episode 98, I talked about one question that you can ask yourself in times of disharmony that will help lead to greater happiness. And that question to ask yourself is, do I need to love it or change it? And also recently, I did a talk at Warwick Schiller's Summit for his Journey On podcast. There were many presenters and we each did short talks. And the topic that I chose was about just this. So the talk was called Love It or Change It. And in the talk, one of the things that I go over are some quick tips about how to love something more or some situation more. And I also gave some really quick tips on how to make it easier to change things if you need to change things. But the thing is, change is not always so easy. I think we've all probably struggled with change at some point in our lives. Maybe it was a struggle about whether or not we should change something. Or even if we decided to change something, why is it so hard to actually do the change? Especially if we're trying to change something that's become a habit. So because it's hard, and because I seem to have been talking about this love it or change it theme, I thought we could talk a little bit more about this change thing. Now, if you've been listening to this podcast, or if you've known me or followed me for any length of time, you probably know that I've put a lot of focus on personal development over the years and trying to increase my own self-awareness. And the process of doing that, I think, in my opinion, it's integral to life and to horses. And training is, what is training if it's not the art of changing things? The art of learning to do what you can't yet do. So that it requires change. So this is an important subject. It's not just some fluffy stuff, right? If we want to train and get results, we have to go from something we can't do and change it into something that we can do. Now, early on, when I started my, personal development journey, I came across this paradox and it kept coming up. And I finally kind of had to sit myself down and go, I need to figure this out because this makes no sense. So on the one hand, I was learning and people were teaching me that I'm just, quote, perfect just the way I am, right? We need to just love ourselves and accept ourselves and know that we are good enough and all that, stuff. Yet at the same time, it seemed that I needed to do a heck of a lot of really hard work to stop doing things like sabotaging myself or creating undue pain for myself. So how on earth could I be both perfect, just the way I am, and have all this hard work that I needed to do, that I needed to change? Because I had all these, issues. And I remember being on this retreat. It was part of this week-long retreat that I did in Mexico. And I remember at one point I just had to go outside the room and I sat down and I kind of had a little, it wasn't a breakdown. I won't say that, but I just was like, the tears were just rolling through my face. And I said, I don't get it. How can I be perfect just the way I am, and I need to change and improve all at the same time? Now, what I started to realize is that I was already very successfully swimming around in this paradox with my horses. Right? With my horses, it was obvious to me that of course they were all perfect, and I was helping them change. And this sort of thing comes up all the time when I'm teaching, right? So I teach my students, I use the phrase, instead of loving it or change it, often when I'm teaching, I'll say be searching or enjoying. And, so if it's something to enjoy it more. And if it's not something you can enjoy, then change it. Search for a different state, a different balance, a different whatever it is. And I find, students, because, students are people, we're all people, and some people have an easier time loving things and just accepting, and other people have an easier time changing things or trying to control them or bend them to their will or things like that. And it's not often that people have an easy time sort of flowing between this being able to love something and really enjoy it, or to be willing to change it and to search and play with it. And this is what we need to float in this paradox. So for some reason, I don't know if I was aware that I was doing it with horses at this time when I was really confused, but I know I was. I might not have known I was, but I was. And realizing that with horses was actually how I started to be able to navigate this weird paradox for myself. So, right, with my horses, it's clear. Of course, they are all perfect, and we can change and we can improve them. We can live in that paradox. And probably some of you are, it's very easy to do that with your horses, and we need to maybe do that for ourselves a little bit more. So in the spirit of wherever you go, there you are, I think playing with this paradox and being able to navigate it, it's a personal development piece that can absolutely help our horsemanship, and it's a horsemanship piece that can help us in life. So whichever doorway you want to go through, pick the easiest one and then let it help the other. So realizing that I already knew how to think of my horses as perfect and changeable was what helped me apply some of that, I'll call it grace, to myself. And okay, there's a bit of process between realizing I could apply that to myself and actually being able to do it for realsies for myself. But hey, that's the work, right? So for students that are in my video classroom, if you're in our Facebook group, you probably have realized that every week we feature a different video. So we post it in the Facebook group. We just kind of pull one out of the archives. We feature it just to bring it to your attention, help you see things that maybe you haven't been searching for or you haven't come across. And one of the Dressage Naturally team members schedules those. So when I poke around in the Facebook group for the video classroom, I come across them too. And so this week there was a video posted, and when it came up, I realized I had actually forgotten about this one. And the topic was so current in my mind because it's related to, this love it or change it thing. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to share this on the podcast. So the rest of the discussion, the rest of the episode here on the podcast is actually the audio of this video from the video classroom. So it's a discussion that I did at a clinic back in 2017 in Texas. So this also highlights that the video classroom, it's not just horse training videos. There are videos on everything related to the horsemanship journey. I mean, not everything, because there's still more to put in there, but the entire sort of scope. So sometimes videos or topics like the one today, which is about change. So I didn't tell you what the title was. The title is like change. So I thought, wow, I forgot I had done a whole discussion on this. And this discussion was in the context of being in the middle of a clinic. And during the clinic, I realized this kept coming up. So we had a time slot for a discussion. And so this discussion came out of a teaching moment, came out of watching students navigating in real time exercises we were doing with our horses. And often, themes arise, or my brain picks up on themes. And so change was the theme. And it was really cool because it's absolutely in the context of horse training. But because I have a hard time separating horse training and life, I think what we talk about here can absolutely be applied in general to anything change related. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to highlight the depth and the breadth of what is in the video classroom. It's not just, it has lots of training techniques and horses and me teaching and coaching, but I'll also put in there kind of anything that applies. So if you haven't checked it out, I hope you do. If you want to see the video that's actually in the video classroom, you can go to dnc.dressagenaturally.net, and it's you'll find it in the May 2017 videos. It's called Change, and that URL address again is DNC, as in Dressage Naturally Classroom, dnc.dressagenaturally.net. So here we go. I'll play the discussion, the whole discussion. And if you want a visualization of what this looks like, you can picture me in a lounge that's just off of the covered arena at a stable in Texas. So you can imagine Texas decor. There's light wood paneling, lots of horse art on the wall, and some cows, and a star out of metal. That's obligatory. I have really short hair. I was actually just looking and thinking, that was a really cute hair length for me. My hair's really long now. Anyway, so I have short hair and a cup of coffee in my hand. Behind me, there's kind of like a coat rack sort of thing with a westerny kind of rope halter and a pair of western chaps hanging on it. Around me, in kind of a semicircle, a few rows deep, are different students sitting on couches, comfy chairs, wooden chairs, the kind that are like meant to be at a table, and maybe some bar stools. You can't see them, but I just thought I'd describe my view. And next to me is a dry erase board. And then in black marker, I've written on the dry erase board, "You're perfect the way you are. Now change." And we'll pick up the discussion there. Thought we'd talk about change. You're perfect the way you are. Now change. When I was doing a lot of the personal work, and it was like, this, like my little science brain at that point was just like, that makes no sense. How can I be perfect the way I am? But I'm supposed to change. And if I have to change, then there must be something wrong with me. So I love this phrase, "You're perfect the way you are. Now change." Because those are both true at the same time. But I just thought it'd be interesting to talk a little bit about changing, because we're here at a clinic. If we're trying to improve, we're trying to change. And we're going to have to change some things in order to improve. I mean, that's just sort of the nature of training and growth. For me, the best things in life are always paradoxes. So it's always when we're talking about stuff like this, you could always see the flip side. It's like, I want to be open to change. Oh, but wait, when my horse goes to run across the highway, I don't want to be open to that change. But I want to be, So this always comes up. Leadership, it's about exerting yourself. No, it's about listening. Which is it? It's always both of those things at the same time. So I don't know if that's going to make things worse or better. So we're always trying to navigate that of I think it's good to call it out, because otherwise you go hear something like it's this way, and then you hear something else is that way, and you're going to end up more confused than saying, it could be both the things at once, and I've got to interpret it for this moment and this horse. And I think that's connected to my passion for empowering you guys, is to know you don't have to try to memorize what's the right and the wrong thing. You just have to know the choices and then navigate it in that moment. I choose not to change in this moment. This is the way I do it, and I would like you to accommodate to me. That's okay. And then other times it's going to be like, why don't you try to do that differently? And we're going to try to figure out when is a good moment to try that. And I think if you can be conscious, then you can say, I'm choosing to do it this way. Oh, that ain't working. Let me try it the other way. Because I think that's what trainers are doing, all the really successful ones, meaning they can get a lot of horses to understand what the heck they're talking about, is because you ride that line of, I'm not changing, I'd like you to change, or I'm now going to change to accommodate you. Because there's no answer. And even with any horse, you can never do the experiment of, let me try it this way, now let me try it that way, because it's never pure, because you always tried the other way first. And maybe with some horses you have to say, I'm not changing, you need to change, now I'll follow you. That might be the strategy. And for another horse you might go, I'll follow you, now you change for me. And you might say, oh, it's about, I need the horse to change for me. It's like, no, that only works if you follow him first. This is the frustrating thing with horse training. You never know. Was it that you work and you go get the one lesson and they have the miracle breakthrough? Was it that? And do you need to just do that? Or was it all the stuff you did ahead of time? And I see this a lot, natural horsemanship people, they get the partnership and then they go take a dressage lesson. Oh my God, I got this, feels amazing. Now they just do that. And then they come back to me a few years later and go, everything's ruined. Like, because you stopped doing all the stuff that made that thing work. Anyway, we're getting swirly here. But there's what you're doing and then there's how you're doing it. And I'm not sure which is harder. It probably depends on the thing. But there's changing... actually things that you're doing, and then there's keeping with the same things but changing how. So a lot of times I'll see students who sometimes if they jump from clinic to clinic, it's like, oh, this technique, well, that didn't work. This technique, oh, that didn't work either. This technique, oh, that didn't work either. But what's really happening is it's not what technique, it's that they're not actually doing the technique. You need to pick any one of those could work if you change how you're doing it. So there's going to be times when we go, all right, we have this choice of what to do or this choice of what to do, and maybe we need to change what. But then sometimes we need to say, we're not going to be able to tell which one works until we make sure how we're doing it is actually viable. Does that make sense? Yeah, so I think that's another thing that's going to come up. We have a million choices of what we could try to ask our horses to do, but then we have to make sure that how we're doing it is actually successful. Does that make sense? And the what to do, I feel, is a lot of, that's on me as the teacher. Like, how are you supposed to know what to do? I'm the one that's supposed to have all the experience, But, as you learn things, you have your own list of choices of what you can do. But I feel like that's a big role of mine, to give you ideas for what sort of things to do. And it's my responsibility to show you how to do things. But then if something's not working, it's really each of us as individuals to go, well, could I do it differently? Am I really getting it? How could I get this technique to work? Am I really getting it to work? Does that make sense? Like I could say, the exercise is to, pick up this glass, water bottle. Here's the exercise, pick up the glass. And of course we have to get it to the stage where, I actually pick it up. Right? If I'm not actually doing the what, if the exercise is what do I do? Pick up the glass, and I go, I did it, I have to change what I'm doing. I didn't really do it. Or I go, here, I did it. Like, no, you didn't. You picked up the pen. That's not the water bottle. But then, even if we go, okay, the exercise, I think the best cure for your Candida parts is to pick up that water bottle. There's so many different ways to do it, right? So for this next section coming up, I'm doing a bit of a demonstration of how many different ways there are to do how you do what you do. So I'm sitting in a chair and I'm reaching forward and each time picking up this water bottle, but I'm doing it with a really different style, with different speed, with different intention, with a different posture. So you'll be able to hear a little bit of the different ways that I pick it up, and you'll be able to hear the different reactions from the students. But just for this next section, that's what I'm doing. I keep reaching forward to pick up this water bottle, but each time in a very, very different way. I did it. Or I did it. Or I did it. These are all, I'm being successful each time, right? So there's just, and even subtly, there's, do I close my fingers one at a time on it, or do I just grab it and squeeze it? Do I just pick it up by here? Do I, do something else? There's a million, infinite number of ways. I could do this all day, by the way, that I could do this, and then there's tempo changes.
I knew you were going to do that.
The suspense, So I think that's what gets really interesting. And now I was focusing on how he's doing that. The first time I made a big posture change, but I could do the same exact tempo and type of picking that up, but I could sit differently every time I do it, and maybe that would have a change. What my arm is doing and my hand is doing the same, but how I do it, I'd be thinking, oh my God, this is so fun. I get to pick up the water bottle. This sucks. This is such a stupid exercise. I can't believe I have to pick up this stupid water bottle. It's going to be different every single way. So I thought it could be fun, like just within just sitting here as you are, you're all sitting a certain way. There's what are you doing? You're all sitting here. How are you doing it? You're all doing it some way. And remember, you're perfect just the way you are. Now change. So like sitting here, how could you sit here and do it differently? So everybody just change how you're sitting. So I'm going to lead people through a little exercise, and I'm demonstrating it myself as I'm asking the students to do something. So there's a visual part to this. And again, you can find this video in the classroom, May 2017, if you want. But I tempt you, as you're listening to this podcast, to go ahead and play along. Pretend you're in the room and just follow the instructions. And that way you get to participate in this exercise also. So everybody just change how you're sitting in some way. Doesn't matter which way. And then change it again. And then change it again. And change it again. And now don't move your physical body, but change it again on the inside. Oh, I changed. I stopped smiling. I'll change on the inside without stopping smiling. Change it again, on the inside only. Okay, now change it on the outside. And change it again. And change it again. And then is there any part of you that you haven't changed yet? Any body part? And change it again. And then think of another body part that you haven't changed yet and change only that piece. And then change it again. And change it again. And change it again. What was that? Keep your emotional changes to yourself. Yeah. All right, so you get the idea, right? I mean, we could, this could last 4 days, change it again, change it again, change it again. So I just thought that could be an interesting way to start this, this clinic, because what are we going to be doing here? We're going to be keeping some things the same, and we're going to be changing other things. And sometimes, in the middle of an exercise, I can give you a certain number of things to change, but then on the inside, you guys are going to be making the changes. I can kind of get you pointed in the direction, see, I can tell you what I'm seeing, but there's going to be a million other things that I can't see that you're feeling. And that's where sometimes I can point someone in a direction, give them all my best advice. And then the student will, make some success, and they're like, oh, I changed my third rib on this thing. And I'm like, okay. And so I think that's where, just as far as my responsibility, your responsibility, I'll aim you as close as I can to where we need to go. And then you guys on the inside have to keep making those changes and keep exploring. It's like if it's close but it's not there, thinking about even like right now how you're sitting, there's things that you can do, and then there's things you can stop doing. And I think that's what's interesting too, is like right here, I could think, oh, okay, I'm a little more engaged in my core than I was earlier. And I can think about, oh, that feels good. My posture feels good. I feel more powerful. I'm engaged. I'm going to remember to do that. And then I can scan and think of what did I stop doing? What do I need to stop doing? Is there any tension in there that I could release within that? So like think of getting in, play around and get in your sweet spot for sitting here in an engaged, pretending that this is really interesting mode. And then, and then think about from here, are there things you could change to stop doing? Is there anything you're doing that you don't need to be doing that you could let go of? And that's where then, how easy can you make this? And if you stop doing too much, you might lose some of it, but like that's going to be the active neutral. Like, can we, in being here, is there any extra tension that I could let go of, or any thought that's like, okay, I'm doing this, but this is really stupid. Like that might be good to let go of, just for now, just to see, no matter how annoying it might be. Maybe it could not be. What would happen if we let go of the idea that it's annoying? And she'd be like, no, it really is annoying. Doesn't matter, because I know I'm perfect just the way I am. No. All right, so I think those are the things that are going to be coming up through these 4 days, and we'll probably have to remind ourselves to be aware and to, be open to that, and to remember that muscle memory will pull us right back down into whatever was most comfortable. And I don't know why I'm not getting as much out of this clinic as I wanted to, because the truth is you might get more, if I sat here like this in this posture, I'm like, clinic was boring. I'm going to hear it differently. And it's not just about you guys loving what I do, but if I'm sitting going, I am engaged, I'm embodying engaged, I'm going to remember. And if I start catching myself like this, like that could be a trigger of like, I'm not paying attention, I'm not fully engaged, even though I think I am, I'm listening, I'm here. But maybe if I just remember to be engaged, like there's things that I could change to make this moment as best as possible. And that's all we're going to try to do with our horses. And, we will get some of it right. And there's probably a million other things we could have done better every single day. And that's welcome to life. What is it that makes change difficult?
It was pretty easy for the group to come up with a fairly long list of things that made it difficult to change. Things like force of habit, or fear of the unknown, or just muscle memory for what you're used to doing, lack of awareness, and the security of consistency, meaning that deciding a known problem is actually better than an unknown possibility. Sometimes it's just not knowing a different way, or being afraid of criticism from others, and things not improving immediately, so you go back. Lack of confidence, self-criticism, yeah, that's a big one. being close-minded, and having limiting beliefs. What are some things that could make change easier? They had to think a little bit more to answer this one, which is why I was really glad I asked the question. But what they came up with is to have more confidence, even if you have to fake it till you make it. To be really open in your awareness, have clear intentions of what you're trying to create, and be curious, and being kind and compassionate to yourself and your horse, and of course, support from like-minded peers. We all agreed that it was important to find a way to make it fun to do new things, and most importantly, know what makes it easier for you to make changes. Everybody's different.